Hello, I'm Jordan. Sorry, it's been a bit since I made a video, but I wanted to talk real briefly today about something I've been chipping away at for quite a while now. Among other things, I got kind of a lot going on right now in various areas of my life, which is why I haven't been very active on BookTube lately. But one of the things I've been reading, I have made time for reading. I will always do that. If I can't make time for reading, then something needs to change so that I can. So one of the things that I've been reading lately is um, Robert Alter's translation of the Hebrew scripture, the Hebrew Bible. Specifically, I've been working my way through his version of Genesis. And just as kind of a side note, these are so I'm sure some of you are aware of this. There's a giant three book box set of his translation of the Hebrew Scripture. There's the five books of Moses. There's the prophets, and then there's the writings, which is just everything else. And they are gorgeous, and I happen to have them, and they are by far the nicest books that I own. And I'm not one for books as objects. I don't put a lot of stock in that, but man, there's just something so beautiful about these, and even just the experience of reading them is. I don't like hardcovers, but it's just wonderful. The pages are like silk. It's I don't know like what the term for that is, but it's just a pleasure to read. And when I was first kind of digging into it, my friend Pete, who has appeared on this channel numerous times, he's one of my rats, in case you don't know. Um, Kind of waddled on up to me like he likes to do when I'm reading, and he began to nibble on this extremely expensive, beautiful book. And I had a moment where I was like, am I going to allow this to happen? Because they can nibble on pretty much anything I have as far as books go. But there was I hesitated when it came to this book. But I eventually decided, why should I be the only one who enjoys these books? And I like to let them do pretty much whatever they want as long as it's safe for them, because they will be dead in a year or two. They have very, very short lifespans, so I like to give them as much joy as they can get from whatever they can. So as a result, this book has been thoroughly chewed on, not quite shredded the way that some of my other books have been, but as you can see, there's a lot of damage, and I'm sure a lot of you are cringing about that, but it's worth it in my opinion. Anyway, so actually talking about the book itself, it is a really, really good translation. Last year I worked my way through the King James Bible, and this doesn't touch that obviously, but it was surprisingly good. I mean, I expected it to be good, but it was strikingly better than I was kind of hoping for. And there are moments when I think it even surpasses the King James version, at least Genesis, which is all I've read of this so far. But beyond that, the book is also full of Robert Alter's commentary and notes. It's at least half notes. Let me give you an example. Look at this. So you have the text up here, and then all of that is notes, and that's like every page in this is half notes, if not more. And I was kind of expecting it to be very academic, and I was expecting to skip a lot of the notes, but in fact I read them all because almost all of them were extremely illuminating. The focus is not so much to supply context, historical context to the stories, although it does do that a little bit. It's more just speaking about certain um, idiosyncrasies of Hebrew and the attempts that he makes to kind of translate those. There's a lot of that, but there's also a lot of kind of literary interpretation going on. And it was just very, very illuminating. I'll give you an example. It's actually the last note in Genesis, and it's a note to the very last sentence in Genesis, which in this translation is, and Joseph died 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. So that's the end of the story of Joseph and his sons, and it's also the end of Genesis. And the note for that single line is, The book that began with an image of God's breath moving across the vast expanses of the primordial deep to bring the world and all life into being ends with this image of a body in a box, a mummy in a coffin. Uh, out of the con- Out of the contraction of this moment of mortuary enclosure, a new expansion and new births will follow. Exodus begins with the proliferation of births, a pointed repetition of the primeval blessing to be fruitful and multiply, and just as the survival of the flood was represented as a second creation, the leader who is to forge the creation of the nation will be born on the water in a little box, not the Aaron, the coffin of the end of Genesis, but the Teva, the ark that keeps Noah and his seed alive. Um, that just gives you some idea of how wonderfully dense and informative and insightful uh, these footnotes are. It's really a marvelous thing. Um, and then going on to just the quality of the translation itself, I wanted to give you an example of that too. I was going to read, if I can find it, I had it. Yeah, I was going to read a section from the King James Version and then give you the corresponding section in the Robert Alter translation because I personally find the Alter version of these lines better. So in the King James Version of Genesis, this is Joseph blessing his sons. And this is what the King James says. Even by the God of thy father who shall help thee, and by the Almighty who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the breasts and of the womb, the blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. So that's nice, it has that rolling rhythm of King James. But this is what Alter does with those same lines. From the God of your fathers may he aid you. Shaddai, may he bless you. Blessings of the heavens above, blessings of the deep that lies below, blessings of breasts and womb. Your father's blessings surpass the blessings of timeless heights, the bounty of hills everlasting. I think that has a much clearer and more rhythmic feel to it than the King James Version. It also, overall, I feel like this translation captures a certain kind of earthy, almost homeliness to the language, and that sounds like a negative thing, but it's really not. It's a wonderful thing that I didn't really pick up on in the King James Version as much as I love it. Also, apparently, much of the original Hebrew, at least in Genesis, is written in verse. Like the entire blessing of Joseph, that's in verse in this translation, which it is not in the King James, obviously. So, anyways, I learned a lot. I also learned new ways to appreciate Genesis, and I'm really looking forward to moving forward into Exodus and beyond. I'm especially looking forward to the prophets. So I will keep you guys posted as I continue on with that. It's probably going to be a while before I get to that. Right now, my plan is to probably read the Quran next, so I'll give you my thoughts on that too if you're interested. And thank you for watching. Have a good night.